Hello everyone, welcome back to the tutorial breakdown. Up next, we are looking at the Global Manager and Interactables. So we created the Global Manager while following the main tutorial to help keep track of the points the player earns as they shoot the enemies. And then we also created Interactables, the ammo station to reload, get more ammos. So let's look at the Global Manager first. So we created a C++ class based on the main tutorial by Mythical Game Dev. So let's have a look at that. Let's look at the C++ classes and then Global Manager. So, yep. So let's have a look at the header. So this was created from the game instance class, view game instance. So because we want it to essentially be our game instance, so it can pass it through the levels and doesn't lose its value. The setup was quite simple, so like this aspect of the tutorial was also very much easy to follow. So just be doing a quick breakdown or overview of everything. So we have the point set to keep track of the player's points. So yeah, that's about it. So nothing in the C++ file. And then this point is being updated once the player shoots an enemy. Whenever the player hits an enemy, so the point is being updated. So to see that, let's look at our shooter weapon, the shooter weapon class. Here we have the shooter weapon. Let's head over to the fire method. So this is the fire method, and we can see whenever the line trace, we check if it hits an enemy. If it hits an enemy, the enemy takes a hit, and then we increase the points. So that's the straightforward implementation of the game instance, the Global Manager game instance. And this is being tracked in the heads-up display as well, so the points reflect there. Then the next thing is the ammo station, the interactable. So looking at that, the interactable, let's check ammo station. So let's have a look at the header file. So everything was pretty much set up from the ground up. So the mesh, that's the static mesh components, the capsule components. We have other properties as well, of which I added some for my own tweak of the game. So I added this, these two is ammo and is health. So to help keep track, because I created another variation of the ammo station, which is an health station for the player to heal and regain their health. So that's why I added this. Since I didn't want to create a whole similar class, I just modified this and then made use of it for both the ammo station and the health station. So that's why you see things relating to health here and not just the ammo. The implementation is pretty much the same, so I think I can just cover that in this breakdown as well. And then the other thing that I'll set up is the methods we want to call on when the components begin overlap, and components end overlap is triggered on the capsule. So now let's look at the C++ file. So we can see, let's check the begin play to see the, oh sorry, not that, this C++ file. So you can see in the begin play, the method we wanted to be triggered when the components begin overlap and end overlap is being called. We added in as dynamic to the actual method so that it can be fired as appropriate. Then there we go. So the implementation is also straightforward. What we are doing is whenever the player overlaps with the capsule of the station, whether ammo station or health station, there's a variable being set on the player to ensure that to check if the player can actually interact with, if the object can interact with the station. So that variable is on the player, so that is, let's check it out on the player. So you can see the player character as this variable can interact, and by default it is false. Here also I added for the health, that's for the health station, so that I can check if it's interacting so that it can get ammo or to get health. And once the player interacts, overlaps, then the ammo station checks, is it the player that is overlapping? If it's the player, then it changes the can interact to true, so that the player can actually get the ammo or get the health as appropriate. And then when the player leaves, the can interact is set to false. So if you notice this VR aspect because I created the VR version of it as well. The implementation is pretty much similar to this, except that it's in blueprints. But it's still the same flow. For the VR, I was checking that the player is the VR pawn, because the Lockstar character is a first-person character, so I had to use the VR pawn from the VR templates, checking that and then setting this can interact and can interact as appropriate. So quite straightforward. So let's look at the blueprints implementation of the ammo station. Let's go back to Unreal. Let's go to lock, blueprints. You can see the ammo station and the health station. So I used so let's check it out. Let's check out the ammo station. So seeing the viewport, you set up everything as appropriate, the mesh, the capsule, and that's it. Essentially, the blueprints part is for the VR aspect, because I can't access the VR pawn in C++, so I just did this part in blueprints. So we'll go over that when I'm covering the blueprints and the VR implementation. And then once this is set up for the health station as well, the same thing. The same thing you can see, and then I set it as appropriate with the variable I'm using to keep track of the station type. So if it's ammo, I check ammo. If it's health, and maybe in the future, if I want to make a station that can actually the player can get both armor and health from. I can still make use of the same C++, file for that. So it just makes things easy to iterate on. Let's look at this implementation, the binding of this ammo station, how it affects the UI. So, but before we look at the UI, so for the global manager, remember that it was added to it's a game instance, so we needed to update our game instance. So if we go to project settings, then maps and modes, we can see that the game instance has been set to the global manager so that it can act as a game instance throughout the experience. So let's look at the UI now. Go to lock UI, we get blueprints, heads up display for the first person shooter. So we will check the bindings. Let's go to graph. You can see get points. So that gets the points from the global manager, which is the game instance, and then update it accordingly on the UI. Then we have the trigger interact. So because we want to control in the designer, I want to control when this text is displayed. I want it to be displayed only when the player is near a station that they can interact with, like the ammo station or the health station. So they'll see this pop up and say, need to interact costs 1000 points. So we did bind it to the interact, trigger interact function. So we can see here. And I use it for both the health station and ammo station. So it comes on when the player can interact, which is default for the ammo station, and when they can interact to A, which is for the health station. So if either of them is true, then it sets the text to show on the heads up display. So that's everything, guys. So thank you very much for watching the breakdown. See you guys next tutorial. Okay, oops, my project is still set to the VR settings. Let me override that. Just to give us a bit of an outro. First person game mode, let's just do. Now we play a mesh not showing properly. Okay, let's take in a while. Whoa, we are here. Okay, let's line them up. And just a quick trick, can hide from the zombies by staying on this. Right, so they can't see me now. Alright, guys, see you next time. Take care.